Mr. Stark, it smells like a new car in here. Here's your look at the new Diamond Select Toys Avengers Infinity War. This is the Premier Collection resin statue of Iron Spider. As the Avengers and their allies have continued to protect the world from threats too large for any one hero to handle, a new danger has emerged from the cosmic shadows. Thanos, a despot of intergalactic infamy, his goal is to collect all 6 Infinity Stones, artifacts of unimaginable power, and use them to inflict his twisted will on all of reality. Everything the Avengers have fought for has led up to this moment. The fate of Earth and existence itself has never been more uncertain. This approximately 12-inch tall resin statue of Iron Spider is based on his appearance in Avengers Infinity War and features a high level of detail and exacting paint applications. It is limited to only 3,000 pieces and includes a numbered certificate of authenticity. It was sculpted by Cortez Studios. Now, as we go ahead and get this measured off, I want to send out a big thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select for providing the sample that we're going to be having a look at here. I'm going way past Spider-Man's head. I'm sure you're asking yourself, whereabouts is this reviewer going? I'm actually going to the very top of one of his iron legs. That's only solely because that will obviously dictate how much space you need for wherever you're planning on displaying this spectacular piece. So really, from the bottom of the base to the very top of its leg, the Iron Spider premium statue stands rather impressively at 13 inches in height, which in centimeters, go ahead and do that right now, 33.1 centimeters tall. Yeah, it's a very scarce quantity release for this Premier Collection resin statue of the Avengers Infinity War Iron Spider, limited to a very low number of 3,000 only. Normally you would see a number here with the certificate of authenticity, but here in this case it says AP, artist proof, again because this was provided. Again, a very low quantity. This seems like one of the lower quantities available for some of the Premier Collection statues we've seen from Diamond Select Toys. Surprisingly, as you get this out of the box, even though it is a resin piece, it's a little bit lighter than maybe some of the other resin pieces for about this scale. I think it's because proportionally, Spider-Man's a little bit smaller than some of the pieces that would normally have been straight out 13 inches tall. So imagining if Thanos, for example, was released as a premium collection statue, he would go to the very top of the leg here of Spider-Man. So he would be a lot heavier than what you would get with the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It still has some weight to it, being that it is comprised of resin. We'll go ahead and flip the statue upside down and right side up very carefully. There we go. Underneath, it's got manufactured by Diamond Select Toys. Again, this sequenced number would match the one that was on your certificate of authenticity. In this case, we've got AP, artist proof, out of 3,000. The base itself, circular base, is also treated to 4 felt feet to, of course, prevent any scratching on whatever surfaces you plan on displaying the statue. frequently stating this, and likely now to state this again in this review, one thing that Diamond Select are kings for are poses for their statues. Very often at times they move away from the concept of museum posing, where you just have a figure, or in this case a statue, standing straight. No, Diamond Select doesn't do that. Instead, you get a very dynamic pose here for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Peter Parker's looking really good, I have to admit. Perched atop of what seems to be some steel or some sort of metallic girders. The base itself looks like it's kind of a dirt base, and you've got some stones and stuff like that. It kind of actually looks like peanut butter cups, Reese's peanut butter cups, just because of the outer, it's obviously not that. But I must say, though, it is a really neat-looking display base. The one thing that works so well for the base itself is the coloring. They've kept to browns and beiges and really otherwise quite dark colors. Even the part in which Spider-Man is actually perched atop of has been kept very much to just to dark browns. This allows and accentuates, I personally feel, the brighter reds and even like the blues, which are dark by comparison, but even like the blues stand out against the backdrop of the otherwise dark display base here. I really could easily talk this whole review about the way that they've posed Spider-Man. There's a lot of flow to this particular piece. Resin is by nature a little bit more fragile than the lesser, cheaper alternative of using plastic. Gallery statues I've also discussed as really the affordable means of jumping on board a statue collection, because it allows you to pick up more statues for less the price. Being that this is also resin, one thing I will have to unfortunately stress is the fragile nature of these legs. This is certainly not something that a fall or even being banged, I think these legs would survive well, just simply because they're comprised, again, of that resin. But the resin does add, like I said, that weight and that extra just kind of feel of premium quality when you're actually holding it in your hand. Having a look at the Spider-Man sculpt, what a fantastic looking sculpt, I have to admit. Like also the fact that they didn't make the costume overly shiny. I think this is one thing that works well, and a good smart decision by really Diamond Select by not making this an overly shiny suit. It does allow you, in exchange for that, it does allow you to kind of see a little bit more of the details that I personally feel might have been lost if they had given it a higher sheen that it seems to have in the film, and some of the other collectibles that have been released featuring the Iron Spider. Again, I really like that they went with not quite, it's not a matte surface. It does have a little bit of a reflection to it, but they've kept it, downgraded it enough that I think you really get the benefit of being able to see just the fantastic individual texturings that have been added to the suit. Things such as the panel lining here in the legs, the torso, and in some instances, like for example, like the back. Even though you don't really see too much of the back, you're probably not going to be displaying it from the back anyways. But by keeping the display, the actual coloring of the suit as a more matte finish, it does allow, though, the panel lines, I think, to pop a little bit more, versus if you had this coloring the same sheen as this, I think you would find yourself competing the colors with one another. The head sculpt is absolutely gorgeous, though. If I could say gorgeous for Spider-Man. He has that same level of panel sheen outline there to his eyes, even though you can still see how those lenses would be able to open and close. A nice little added touch for kind of giving you that feel that the eyes would light up is a subtlety, but by adding just that little blue highlight around the areas of the eyes, I think really allows those eyes to look like they're glowing. I mean, even from a distance, it does look like those eyes are glowing. Everything really to the costume is raised. Nothing seems cheap and, you know, just rushed in the sense that they just painted in the details. As I said, you can see all the texturings there of the suit and all the raised elevations, for example, of like the gold, for example, around the leggings, the legs of the spider. You've got the individual capsules there located on his belt. Those were also raised also. And a quick look, there is his new web shooters there, also a little bit different than his traditional original costume that he sports. The colors are very rich. Again, with Iron Spider, you could have so easily made these very shiny, and I think so much of that would have been lost. The colors, I think, are very happily matching that of the movie. Even though, again, it doesn't have as much the reflection sheen that the movie would also have. Like the legs, for example, as you can see, are fully spread out. None of them seem to actually be touching anything. That's one worry that I have with the statue. Like I said, going back to the idea of dropping it, clipping it, or banging it. All three things that you really would never want to consider as a collector, but it's all things that you really would want to be worrying about. Say, for example, like the legs don't seem to touch to anything. They don't touch the side little railings here of metal. They don't touch to the side here, which almost kind of looks like webbing itself. And most definitely, they don't, of course, touch to the top there. It does have a wide stance to it, something I'm glad that they did for his legs. I mean, they could have contracted and had the legs closer to, I think, the body. But I think as a result of it, though, actually, I kind of like that the legs are as wide out as they are. I mean, it kind of fools the eye, giving you a larger looking statue than really what it actually is. When you really think about it, Spider-Man is only occupying this amount of space, and the display base, you know, about the same. You're only getting about that much space of really, when you think about the actual figure itself. By adding these extra legs, you're now increasing the visual scope of what the statue looks like. And as I said, Diamond Select are really kings when it comes to posing of these figures. As we've looked at the various examples of gallery statues and premium statues on this channel, they give these guys dynamic poses, and Iron Spider here is no exception. Through the various different Iron Spider reviews that I've done on this channel, whether it be figures or collectibles, you probably know I haven't been all that favorable about this costume. At times, even in the beginning stages of looking at this costume, I really didn't like it at all. I would have favored myself his first appearance in the live-action films wearing the Iron Spider suit to be something a little bit more closer to the comics. An all-red outfit with yellow accents. But still, this is the route that they ended up going with. A costume I think very much mirrors what Ben Reilly would have had, Ben Reilly's Spider-Man would have had, with that wider, spread-out spider logo on his chest. Though still, many moments and reviews later, I have to say that I have warmed up to this costume, and it's really through designs and releases, like for example with the Diamond Select version of the Premium Collection Iron Spider. I really like this one a lot. I think really what favors this statue so much is, again, something I talked about in this review. Diamond Select doing really their best to not just simply give them museum standing poses. I think having a standing Spider-Man with his legs spread out, the Iron Spider legs spread out the way that they are, I think could have still been successful, but Diamond Select took it one step further and gave it a very dynamic pose, having Spider-Man perched atop, almost looking as if, by the way that his hand is gestured, he's about to shoot off a web and go swinging out of the shot. Again, I really do like this statue for its smaller size. Keeping in mind, like really the figure as a whole, the part that is Spider-Man is just a little bit taller than a regular Spider-Man figure. But it's really by adding these extra legs that you get a bigger presentation when you want to be putting this one on display. The colors are quite good, the sculpting is fantastic. And again, of the various different Iron Spiders that I've looked at on this channel, this look of Spider-Man and the way that this one is presented is really up the top of the list for me. If you guys are interested in picking this one up for yourself, some good news is that the Iron Spider Premium statue should be available now in most comic book stores and retail stores alike. The price point on this will vary. I've seen some online stores selling it for roughly about a $135 price point. Some comic book stores may be closer to about a $140, but that's what you're paying for a little bit extra, being that this is a resin statue and not just simply the plastic statues that we're looking at in the previous reviews, like the gallery statues, for example. The one thing I also really want to commend Diamond Select for is by separating out and having statues in two distinct categories. I've said this on countless gallery statue reviews. The gallery statues are good for people that are looking to get into statue collecting and maybe are on a budget. Gallery statues are on average about a $40 to $60 price point. If you can spend a little bit more, then you can source out and look into getting the premium collection resin statues that, of course, are about $100 or so more. So again, I really like the fact that they have two distinct categories. both of the statues look quite good, even if you have a gallery statue and a resin statue in the same detolf or shelf or wherever you really display these. They work well together or independent depending on where your budget sits. And again, I really want to commend Diamond Select for doing that. I also want to really thank Diamond Select for taking the opportunity and sending this my way. Just a fantastic looking statue. If you guys are a fan of the movie Iron Spider, which I know I wasn't initially, you're really going to want to add this one to your collection. Today, like I said, we were having a look at the new Diamond Select Avengers Infinity War. This was the premium collection resin statue of Iron Spider. Now, if you guys want to go back and have a look at some of my other Diamond Select reviews, or if you're just in the fancy of more statue reviews, there's playlists for both, and I'll provide the links down below. Also, speaking of down below, if you haven't had a chance to do it so yet, maybe you are new to this channel or a long-time viewer and just never got around to doing it, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on your bell notifications so that when future videos, future maybe statue reviews or future Diamond Select reviews, you'll never miss out when those things go online. As always, guys, let me know what you guys, by the way, think of the Iron Spider premium statue down below in the comment section if you managed to pick this one up for yourself or just based on this review. Let me know what you think of the statue down below. And as always, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next time.